What's up, Canes fans? Peter Rees here, Brad Tejeda for our first time doing this stream together. I'm very excited about this one because Brad is the voice of the people, man. He's always getting the fan base riled up, and no one's more connected to the streets and to what the guys are doing and the commits and who's next and stuff like that. So excited to get on here with you, Brad, because I can't say I'm as well versed as I used to be in terms of who's up next and who's the staff looking at that is not being talked about, things of that nature. And I know you're all on top of it. Obviously, I can bring a different perspective to things, but excited to be on here with you tonight, man.
Absolutely, brother. It's been a long time coming, man. It's like it came full circle for me. It's like I used to be on the phone listening to you and D Money, and you be in the prime, and now it's like me and you get to connect and do this thing all over, man. It's like LeBron joining forces with another superstar. So I like it,
There you
man.
go,
It's
man. But listen, you're LeBron. You're LeBron, man. You're LeBron.
no,
I'm
that's you, brother.
I'll be Lonnie Walker, man. I'll come in and I'll come off the bench and I'll make some plays when needed. But nah, man, we'll wait before we get into the nitty gritty here. Let me tweet out again that we're on now. Usually, obviously, you know how it goes. It takes a few minutes for people or everyone to get back in here.
Absolutely.
But nah, man,
And
we
as,
wanted to get this done before the Heat game, obviously tonight.
I was just
I know
about to say
everyone's
we
gonna
got
be
30 minutes. We got 30 minutes for the Heat game. We got to make sure we get as many people tuned in as that. We got Gabe Vincent out tonight, so someone like Kyle Lowry. This is why you brought Kyle Lowry into this organization, right? For moments
definitely.
like this.
And listen, he hasn't been in the best shape and stuff, but like you said, it's like you gotta rely on him. I mean, you saw what he did in what was it, the game against the Hawks, right? I don't think they lost that game, but he ended up having
He had a great
30,
game.
almost 30 points. So he kept them alive in that one. Um, I'm bumping this thread now on Kane's Insight too. But yeah, Brad, we'll go just to start things off. I'll refer back to the latest edition of, well, before we talk about the bank, Vincent Shavers. I know it's been almost a week now, but
Yep.
in what I know about this guy, man, it's crazy because it seems like he's been a youth superstar, and he's been on the scene. Miami Gardens Ravens, one of the
Yep.
top programs in the country, obviously. But it looks like he can run at that linebacker position. We all know that that's right now in the modern game. You need guys who could run sideline to sideline and cover and blitz and do it all. We there's a few guys on the roster right now that they brought in who can do that as well. But I'm excited about Shavers. I know everyone gets caught up in the stars and all that, but I think he'll be a guy who's a 4-star by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, when you turn on the tape of Vincent Schaefer's, I got to talk to him and his dad a couple of days ago for about 30, 45 minutes, man. And this is a kid where, I mean, him and his dad have been diehard Miami Hurricane fans their whole entire life. When you ask Schaefer's Jr., some of the guys he looks up to, it's the Sean Taylors, the Ed Reeds, the Ray Lewises. So his dad, has been a Hurricane fan since the 70s, 80s. So he has instilled in Schaefer's Jr. that old school culture, the mentality that you need, right? Like when you think of that old school mentality, you think of guys like a Cam Kitchens, you think of guys like a Popo Aguirre, and some of the mentality that they bring to the table. And someone like Vincent Schaefer's him being a local guy, right? He was at Pace, just transferred to Miami Central. This was a move that they were planning on making to better his future, at the next level. And as we know, Miami Central is a powerhouse this year. They're taking kids from all over the nation, so he's not afraid of competition. He's at a prime position, that is going to get a lot of looks and opportunities on that defense. And they're going to be one of the best teams in the nation. So this is a great opportunity for someone like him to get some more film, more snaps. And like you said, man, this is a young man. His ceiling is nothing but high, man. For a guy
Right.
like him, his ratings will go up. And you saw, last year around this time, this staff, they had opportunities on a local guy like Stanquan Clark, right, out of Miami Killian, and they ended up, passing on him, or him going in a different direction. But that was a young man at the time. He was ready to be a Hurricane. We just weren't ready to
Right.
let the green light go. And I think what you're seeing with this situation and this time, this staff is not going to let that happen again. They have no problem getting as many guys on
Definitely.
board as possible, and if they got to stack the class to the end, they're going to do it.
And one thing, I'm sure you heard this too, but the biggest thing that to me is like the green light special with him is that Jason Taylor saw him practice and
Mm-hmm.
gave the major stamp of approval. He told the rest of the staff, because you know how it is. He may have I don't know if he had an offer or not, but they really went full fledged for him when
Mm-hmm.
JT saw him in person practice and said, "This is a guy we need to go get." So I think that's the value of having a Hall of Famer and Jason Taylor. Look, it doesn't always translate in any sport and anything. Just because you're a great player doesn't mean you're a great coach. We understand that, right? There's guys who never really played the game and are great coaches. But if someone like Jason Taylor is going to go out there and watch you in person, and also having had the experience that he had coaching at the high school level too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to say that he was, came back and told the rest of the staff, we need to go get this guy, to me means everything.
Yeah, having a guy like Jason Taylor be able to, be on the sidelines and give those check boxes, watching you perform. Like this is finally a guy that we can bring to the table that kids in this day and age can relate to. Before,
Right.
the relatability was turning on a YouTube clip and saying, "Oh yeah, this was the guy that used to play, at your position." Nah, you're being able to talk to a Hall of Famer, that is relatable on a personal level. And speaking of coaches that are doing a lot behind the scenes too, especially with a guy like Vincent Schaefer's. Coach Hippolyte was one of the
Mm-hmm.
main coaches in this recruitment. So a guy like Coach Hippolyte, he's been doing a lot of things behind the scenes. Coming back from Miami, was at Florida for a couple months. Came back to Miami, has been doing work on the trail between Vincent Schaefer's and a running back like Chauncey Bones, who we're still going after. Those are two guys that Coach Hippolyte has been doing a real good job behind the scenes. So credit to him too.
That's one thing I definitely noticed from when I was covering the team, when I was covering it in the golden years, and Rick and Manny Diaz, is that the support staff, man, there was always a support staff, but there are so many more people involved now who have very meaningful roles to what's going on, and it's great to see everyone kind of get their shine here and there.
Yeah, and especially in today's day and age of college football, you need specific people for specific roles in order to be a successful program in today's age of college football. When you got social media, when you got NIL, I mean, you need a guy like Coach Andrew Rogers that you brought from Michigan State, who is literally here for the transfer portal, right? You need young women like
Fun
Katie.
known
Yeah.
little known fact: Andrew Rogers' father is actually uh, Russell Wilson's agent. Actually,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, Mark Rogers. He's a Columbus guy, and he was Russell Wilson's youth football coach, a youth baseball coach. Was his baseball agent. Got certified in his so little known connection there. But yeah,
I like.
it's crazy how many people like that are on this staff though. It's a
Yep.
very well connected and intertwined football world.
It's super balanced, very balanced, and it seems like everyone has their own position and role. You got guys like Mike Rump who knows the ins and outs of the program. Him and a guy like Coach Stroud, those are the two perfect guys you want when you bring a new recruit in their family, at the facility, and for them to know the culture, the history, and what it
Right.
means to be a Miami Hurricane. Those are two guys you want there at the table. And then when you talk about recruiting, you got guys like Coach Field, Coach Rogers, Dennis as well. I mean, these are guys that are doing a lot behind the scenes too. And hey, when you got an evaluator now like Alonzo Highsmith, try to tie the
Yeah.
Columbus thing back in. Another Columbus guy and Alonzo Highsmith, man, he's the ultimate cheat code in my opinion right now.
Yeah.
He is able to pick and evaluate certain guys, whether it's the low 3-star guys that we're going after that are going to become easily 4-star guys, or the transfer portal guys like Jacoby George, Shamar, Kirk as well. Those type of guys were handpicked by Alonzo Highsmith.
Yeah, he has to sign. He's signing off on everyone that's coming through. He's watching film on everyone, on every guy that's being offered. So his role is vital. Brad, let's get to some of these. We have a couple questions here to get to. Steven Avello uh, wants to say, he says, can you rank these D tackle prospects by likelihood we get them? David Stone, Justin Scott, and Aiden Breland.
Justin Scott 1, David Stone 2, Aiden Breland 3.
Which, we've been hearing for a couple months now that this D line class was going to be reflecting of what the O line class was last year. So, I mean, this is listen. My personal opinion. Since things have been sped up a little bit, but always now, June, July is when these elite guys start to pop, and I think we're about to see a little run now.
Man, I mean, look at this. We were in the same spot last year. We were around 7, 8 recruits committed in this class. Mostly we're all 3-star guys, right? People were like, oh, what's going to happen with Mario first year at the program? Can he do what he did at Oregon? A month and a half goes by and we're sitting easily in the top 10. We could have easily been in the top 5 if we would have landed a guy like Cormani McClain here at the end. But when you are, I mean, just think about from a Miami Hurricane fan aspect when you look at recruiting in the last 2 years and how Mario and this staff has transformed it, right? We are going after the alphas of the alphas. We're going head to head with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Texas, the Floridas, the Tennessees. And last year, we went more than 50% where we beat those guys. And the guys that you missed out on, yeah, it was a miss. Guys like Cormani McClain, and a few others, Jaden Rashada, obviously at the end. We were still able to find ways to get other guys to where that miss wasn't as significant as years past. In years past, we were banking on that 1 4 to 5-star local guy to hopefully pick Miami at the end, and we were going into the commitment process shaking. What you're seeing now is the way the staff is working and operating and the gifts they're throwing out, and obviously guys like us behind the scenes knowing when these things are going to happen. You already know going into the commitment process that man is going to pick up the Hurricane hat and put it on. And these are 5-star, high 4-star guys that are getting offers from everywhere in the country. And the fact that we are competing with the big dogs, and yet we haven't even competed with the big dogs on the football field, that's the last aspect of this whole recruiting process. We start winning football games, Pete. This whole recruiting is about to.
That's when they can start stacking things on top of each other, because listen, we all want to be positive, but they've got to at least show it's got to be a fun product to watch this year at the end of the day. I don't know if anyone's expecting 11, 12 wins, right? But even if this is an 8 to 9, maybe 10-win team and with a bowl win, right? It's got to be a product that on Saturday afternoons and nights people are looking forward to tuning into, right? It's got to be something that you aren't trying to figure out, is it the coaching, is it the talent? Listen, they may not win every game, but you want to see these young guys be high impact players, right? Because you have a lot of young guys who are going to be in that starting unit, freshmen, sophomores, the building blocks, right? But you also want to see these guys that you're bringing in, like the Devontae Browns of the world, the Malagoas at linebacker. You got to hit on these guys as well, because moving forward, the transfer portal is going to continue to be a big part of what you're doing in terms of building a roster.
Yeah, that last message you said, Pete, at the end, it really hit it on the head, in my opinion. When you talk about if we're going to transform this season into 8 and 9 wins, which seems very possible, right? That's not something that is very far-fetched. If you are able to do that, the majority of the guys that are going to contribute this year of what you're already seeing are your upcoming freshmen or your sophomores that have been in the program for now a year or two under Mario Cristobal. And the greatest aspect of that is the recruiting class that we built last cycle on top of this cycle. When you talk about stacking, not only is that 8 or 9 wins going to look good for a recruit like that, but it's going to look even better that the most impactful guys that are making a difference are guys that have only been in the program for a year or two. So that's going to allow them to think right away, bro, I could be here for 6 months and I can make an impact like a guy like Ruben Bain, be maybe a first team All American as a freshman, right? Having a guy like Jaden Wayne, that can play on the outside, a guy like Bobby Washington, who's going to cause fits for a defense and a land Gendry scheme. Those are the opportunities you want. And when you have two safeties like James Williams and Cam Kitchens, who are both, highly NFL draft prospects, in my opinion, if they both have really good years this year, you never know what's going to happen. That backfield, after this year upcoming, could potentially be two open competition starting spots for a big time guy like a Ellis Robinson, like a Jalen Hayward, like a Zaquan Patterson, to want to be with this program and want to be that next guy up.
See if there's some more questions here we can get to. Do we fresh 3542 says, do we need a bigger D tackle? I mean, I think they've been looking for a big rotational D tackle, obviously. Let's see if they end up grabbing one here. There's still some time to do that, but
I mean, if you really look at Lance Gager's defense, this is the thing. When you look at Lance Gager's defense, he doesn't necessarily need that big 3-tech defensive tackle. He's very good at scheming up and at using the strengths and abilities of the guys that he's bringing in. And when you look at our defensive line, it's very similar to our offensive line. We have a lot of guys that we cross train, right? That they could play inside, they could play outside, they could play on the left side or the right side. You're going to see this year kids like Nisley Kelly that may end up playing defensive tackle at times. You're going to see a guy like Ruben Bain play inside and outside. A guy like we saw last year, Akeem Mesidor, he had no problem playing inside and outside. So when you look at the recruits that we're going after, especially this year, whether it's defensive end or defensive tackle, you got potentially up to 25, 26 guys that we're really targeting right now. And only maybe 3 or 4 of them have that big body ability that you're talking about, like that just plugs the holes. But what you're seeing is all these guys are 6'4", 6'5", and they could bend, they could move, and they got plenty of tools in their toolbox. So they could play the inside, they could play the outside. So I think what you're seeing is we're getting more athletic from a defensive line standpoint, and guys that have a lot more tools in their arsenal. To where I don't think you necessarily need a big body 3-tech, but it's going to be interesting to see what a guy like Leonard Taylor and a guy like Ahmad Moten does for us this year.
Moten, I think, is going to take a huge step. I think he could be that big-bodied guy, and he's a very athletic guy as well. But I know Leonard Taylor has been in the process of adding weight as well, and obviously he's been recovering from his shoulder surgery, and I think he'll be 100% soon, ready to go. But I agree with you. I mean, I think it's going to be a versatile mix of guys. Ideally, you would like to have a big-bodied guy to at least have in the rotation, right? Yeah, I mean, I know they were going after Malone, right? So he could have potentially been that guy. But Dean is a smaller, interior lineman, very productive. I know they're excited about his, potential impact on the team, but this is not going to be. You're going the same way that people showed up to the spring game this year and saw the body types on the offensive line and was like, whoa, that's different than what we've seen the last 10, 15 years at Miami. They're going to come, I think, next year and the year after and look at the D-line and say, all right, this is starting to look like what we thought it would look like and looking like an SEC defensive line, really.
Look, I mean, I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch, man, but I mean, just from a recruiting standpoint, when's the last time Miami has had 5 5-star defensive linemen all on campus at once? June 9th, you're going to have 5 5-star defensive linemen that you're going after that will all be on campus. On top of, should be another 5-star and Jarrett Gibson from IMG at running back who hasn't got that 5th star yet. But you're talking about 6 5-stars potentially all on campus at once. That's the movement that you need for this program, and most of those guys are defensive linemen. Talk about David Stone, Colin Simmons; those are 2 of the top defensive linemen in the country. 2 guys that have visited at other programs together as well. And my guy Gabby Arrudia reported that David Stone wanted to make sure Colin Simmons was at this visit with him because their mothers are very close, so they feel like the opportunities and the things that they're looking for at a university would see eye to eye with a family like Colin Simmons. So being able to not only recruit David Stone and not only recruit Colin Simmons, but the fact that they're recruiting within each other that's also going to help a team like Miami when it comes to recruiting and building relationship standpoint. Because what you're seeing now is most of the guys at Miami are either going very hard after, or guys that have just committed, like a Vincent Schaefer's, like a Max, who was a walk-on quarterback as well, and a few other guys. I know the cornerback that we just got recently. All these guys have relationships with other people. I mean, you talk about the 2025 or 2026 cornerback from IMG that we just landed, might reclassify to 2025. He's very close with Ellis Robinson and Jared Gibson. Those are two guys that you're going after very heavily, right? Max, who I mentioned before, who we got as a walk-on, he plays with Jamari Howard, so he's a cornerback that you're going after. So it's all about not only recruiting these kids and landing them, but making sure they become another recruiter standpoint for you as well.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Gabby Urrutia. He when we were just talking about the, just watch what happens in June and July. He had an interaction on Twitter yesterday where he basically said July 24th. Let's see what happened. With I think it was a Gator fan who was coming out of Miami's recruiting, and he pretty much was staking his confidence in a couple months from now, there's going to be a lot more high-profile additions to this recruiting class.
Yeah, Gabby's usually a quiet guy on social media. He likes to play things safe, but when he is able to pound his chest and people are see it, that's when you're like, okay, yeah, we definitely got something. When Gabby's able to do something like that, so I like that.
Let's see, we've got a few more comments.
We got a donut. Hey, make sure anyone that's tuned in right now, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to CanesInSight for us. We're constantly putting out content, whether it's on social media, on our website, and obviously on our YouTube page that you're on right now. So make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe for us. Appreciate the dono as well. Kyler and Miami came $1.99 dono for us. Ohio State sucks and Florida State sucks. Go Canes. I couldn't agree more.
Definitely.
With you, man.
Mr. Ocho Cinco 99. He says he's English and he's waiting up for the Heat game, so he's watching from across the pond. Appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
Who's your football club, man? I'm a Newcastle man. We're playing European football next year, baby. We're playing European football. Who's your club, man? Talk to me. Let's see what else we got here. Someone's asking about Citizen, if he's going to be ready, if he's out this year. Listen, I've heard he's taking things very slowly. This was a very severe, very, very severe injury. So we obviously are hoping for the best for him. And at his position, you gotta be the way that he's going to be taking hits and cutting and jumping and things of that nature, running back more than any other position. You've got to be more than 100% ready to go. So I don't think that we're going to be seeing him at the start of camp, quite frankly.
To be quite frankly honest with you, I don't know if you may see him at all this year. We'll see what happens. But, I mean, that's why you bring in a guy like a Jay Allen, right? That's why you got to – and now Don Chaney 3.0, has been healthy for a few months now, and it seems like he is back and ready to attack the football field, man. I'm really excited for Don Chaney this year. I think he is setting himself up for a very big opportunity for someone like himself. As you know, with running backs, Pete, all you really need is one big year, and you can definitely get your draft grades up. And he's someone who's gone through a lot of injuries, going back all the way through high school. And I know this is his first full offseason. He's able to give it a full go. So I know he's full throttle. So we'll see what happens with Don Chaney.
I think he deserves a lot of credit in today's, portal era, and they brought in running backs and stuff like that, which, we don't expect them not to, because they everyone does it every position. But he, hasn't gone to Twitter and social media, and he's gone through his own injury things like you said, but he's primed now to be in a great, opportunity in this offense.
Yeah, he could have easily pulled, like a Derek Smith type situation from a couple of years ago. A guy like Derek Smith, he was slowly blossoming at Miami, in my opinion. And as soon as he left, that was a huge position of need where he could have probably ended up starting that year if he would have just stayed with Miami, because we were depleted at the cornerback, and especially him being diverse, playing that star striker position at times too. We could have definitely used him, but he obviously transferred as well. So having a guy like you said, Don Chaney, in this day and age of the transfer portal market, he probably could have definitely gone somewhere else and easily been the number one guy. But the fact that he stuck with Miami and wanted to show everybody he could battle it out, come through with injury, and clearly be the number one guy coming out of camp right now, you gotta give him kudos for it.
Brad, don't forget about T.A. Cunningham as a comment here. What's going on with him? Is there any up to guy? I know he's at Central now, but
Yep.
is he a guy who's still in the mix?
Oh, absolutely. T.A. Cunningham, Justin Scott, and Jaden Jackson. Those would probably be the three defensive linemen right now that I would feel the most confident being Miami Hurricanes. If I had to throw a fourth one in there, I would say Marquise Lightfoot out of Chicago. But those are the four guys that if I had to throw a crystal ball or whatever you want to throw in there to be a Hurricane right now, those are the four highly confident guys on the defense side of the ball, I would say. But yeah, definitely can't forget T.A. Cunningham, him, his brother, and their quarterback, who's a 2025 guy, all transferred from California to Miami Central. They're originally from Georgia as well, so they got some ties to the South. But yeah, I like T.A. Cunningham being a Hurricane as of right now.
Mr. Ocho Cinco, man, tough season. I'm sorry about that. Todd Bowley, he's willing to spend the big bucks, but you guys are an unserious club right now. Arsenal, Glenn Hibbert, congrats on Saka, long term. We got Knicks 555 Leeds, Big Sam. Let's see if he stays there long term. Listen, I love the footy banter. I'm a big soccer guy. If anyone plays FIFA on PS5, let me know. I'm ready to go whenever. Let's see what else we got here. Chris Johnson. How about that run he had the other day, huh?
Record. Ended up beating out another local South Florida guy, and Anthony Schwartz out of American Heritage for that 100 meters. So
Yeah.
that was awesome. That was awesome.
Who Anthony Schwartz was a third-round pick and got drafted pretty much because of his speed, right? And that's, I mean, that number that he put up, and I saw it was pretty much a meme online because the numbers in that heat were pretty crazy, and some of the guys who were at the end of the leaderboard were still running ridiculous times, but that's South Florida for you.
Yeah, hopefully someone like Chris Johnson Jr., if everything goes well in our running back situation, he's the perfect guy that you would like to see get his 4 games, still be able to redshirt this year. And you literally use him for his speed, right? You put him in opportunities where all he needs to do is think and go, whether that's on the return game, kick or punt return, or in special situations, whether he's running the ball or catching the ball out of the backfield. Use his speed wisely, man, because I think a guy like Mark Fletcher is definitely going to get his shine this year as a true freshman. He brings something to the table that nobody else in the running back room has with his size and stature. So as long as he could get that pass blocking going pretty early, I expect him to get a lot of playing time this year.
Showboy Kane asking about Collins, Pong. Asking if he's gained some weight since arriving in January.
Yeah, he has. He definitely has gained some weight. Almost everybody has, honestly. Najee Kelly looks like
I saw
he's putting on
Jaden
some
Wayne
weight.
walking around the other day on campus. Listen, I still work out of the gym there, man. You can't beat the alumni membership over there. It's $50 a month, man. Great gym. But I was leaving the gym and I saw him walking, and he has a great frame. I mean, he looks like he's going to be a guy who's definitely going to be in that rotation this year.
Yep, and that's another kid that came across country to play at IMG, 1 year, and has built that relationship with Mario ever since 8th grade. He was the first offer he had coming out of 8th grade, so those are the type of things that Mario is able to bring to the table when it comes to the recruiting process. And you're going to see that with a few guys in this cycle too. They're going to commit to Miami simply because of the relationship they have with a guy like Mario Cristobal.
Galaxy King asking about, is it some steam with the Chaminade staff blocking, meaning we wouldn't get any players from there? So look, Brad, you're again more connected to what's happening behind the scenes these days. I'll say in my experience, there was always people claiming, oh, we can't get a player from this 7-on-7 team. We can't get a player from this high school. This coach doesn't like Miami, right? at the end of the day, yes, there's always going to be influential factors involved in a player's recruitment, but there's more than one person involved in a player's recruitment, right? And a lot of times, just because a player's coming from a high school, right, or a 7-on-7 program, doesn't necessarily mean for that player in particular they're being controlled by whoever that is being accused of steering them away from Miami. So again, you're more plugged into what's happening in that situation, but I don't ever really like to say, look, this guy's not coming to Miami because of this coach. There's a lot if that player wanted to come to Miami, they're going to come to Miami regardless of what a coach has to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Miami has been recruiting about 5 to 6 guys from Chamadon for the last 2 to 3 years now, ever since they were freshman or sophomore. The relationship that this staff has built with those particular guys, who are probably the best guys on the football team, the alphas, those things bring a lot more meaning to some of the things that you're hearing behind the scenes, or like you said, the 1 or 2 guys that people think are driving that much of an influence. At the end of the day, the biggest influence is the product on the football field, and as simple as that. And unfortunately, Miami has not performed on the football field. And when you don't have a good product, I don't care how good of a salesman you are. If I open up the box and it doesn't perform how you told me it was going to sell, I'm not going to buy it, right? So
Right.
at the end of the day, Miami's got to show that the product on the field is legit, because everybody that comes from that high school, for the most part, that you're trying to recruit, are legit guys, and they want to be set up for success. And when you are able to get a pitch from a Nick Saban or a school like Georgia, where they already have the blueprint in place, to where it's like, dude, all you got to do is follow this for 3 years and you're going to be in the NFL. That there's no way you're going to say no to that. And what Mario and the staff is trying to do now is they're trying to build a foundation. They're trying to build a blueprint and a culture. And that starts with bringing in the right guys at certain positions. And that's what you're seeing. Mario's only been here for 2 years, and the offensive line has transformed astronomically as far as size and stature and productivity. And then when you look at the linebacker room, I mean, look at the linebacker room in the last 6 months. We went from only having 1 or 2 linebackers, where your starting linebacker was an undersized 5'11" Corey Flagg, who was, very slow at times side to side, but he was dependable because he knew what he was doing. Now what you're doing is you're bringing in 5 to 7 guys that are 6'3", 220 pounds, that can move sideline to sideline and run a 4.4, 4.5, and have the athleticism to not only play in the run, but also being able to cover. So you got to be able to flip the room, and in order to do that, you got to bring in more solid guys, and that's going to start with solidifying some of the local pipelines, like Central, like Chamadon, and I think Miami's doing a really good job at that, like Columbus as well. You're going to start seeing in the next couple of weeks some of these under the radar guys from the local pipeline high schools in South Florida. Miami's going to allow them to get that green light if they want to commit, like a guy like Dalen Russell. So we'll see what happens.
Did you see here? We've got Corey DiBiase's asked a couple times about DeAndre Robinson, if you know anything about his recruitment.
That's the kid from Orlando, I believe.
Yeah.
Malik went to the same high school with him. Big time defensive tackle. We were talking earlier about needing that big body, the 3-tech. That is the right guy to want to get in this program. I believe he has already announced 4 official visits. Most of them were SEC programs. I believe Florida was one of them. I don't think he has listed Miami's official visit, but as we know, starting July 1st, these recruits and these players have unlimited official visits starting July 1st. So even though these guys that we're going after, some of them aren't officially announcing that, hey, Miami is going to be one of my official visits, make sure, one, you count how many official visits they have thrown out there, because someone like Robinson, who we're talking about, he only threw out 4. So even in that small time span, if he wanted to add Miami in the mix, he can, and that's his 5 official visits before July 1st. But even if he doesn't want to decide by July 1st, he can use that opportunity to come visit Miami whenever he wants. Him being in Orlando, I would expect somebody like him to probably visit a local football game if he hasn't committed already. So I wouldn't count him out, and I definitely wouldn't count out big time recruits that are already committed to other programs, because at the end of the day, if Miami performs on the football field, I think we can take anybody from anyone as long as we produce.
And we're not going to hear about those names either, most of them, because we know the staff works in silence. So listen, dream big and aim high. That's what this staff does. So more likely than not, it would be guys who are, you look at those recruiting rankings and guys who are in the top 50, top 100. I mean, that's who they're going after when we're talking about guys who are committed to other schools, right? They're not settling with the guys that they're picking up now are going to be the base of the class at the end of the day. Amazing football players, maybe aren't all, because we talk about these 3-star South Florida guys being 4 stars at other places. A lot of it has to do with physical stuff, right? They maybe aren't fully developed. They aren't as big as they're going to be once they get into a full strength and conditioning program and things of that nature. But this class is going to fill out very, very nicely. I don't have any doubts about it. So we got about, we'll call it 15 minutes left here because we got the Heat game coming up here in 20 minutes. Shout out to everyone listening, man. We're over 100 viewers right now, so we appreciate everybody's support. Let's see here. Let's get to some more. If there's any more questions and comments we can get to. Have we cooled on Brandon Baker, offensive lineman?
Absolutely not. We are definitely wanting a guy like Brandon Baker. He's the #1 offensive tackle in the country, and he's that for a reason. Goes to Mater Dei, which is one of the biggest powerhouse programs out on the West Coast. Mario and Maribel, as we know, they know how to recruit offensive linemen, and they look for the right guys, whether it's the outside tackle or inside guard. They got a certain stature, and whether it's the footwork or what they bring to the table, Brandon Baker checks out all the boxes. But him being a West Coast guy, teams like Oregon, that's going to be a team to beat for someone like him. Him and Aiden Breland are very, very close. So the fact that we're bringing Aiden Breland on campus, that should hopefully help. If you could lock in a Breland and a David Stone, that should hopefully create some momentum for you to hopefully lock in a guy like Brandon Baker. But if you don't land a guy like Brandon Baker, Miami definitely has other options at the offensive line position. We already got one guy locked in Juan Minaya. And we're not afraid to extend offers to other guys. You saw a guy like Zary Madison, who we recently offered. He locked in an official visit. That's a guy to look out for on June 23rd. He's coming in with a lot more of the committed guys that are already in this class. So Zary Madison would be an offensive tackle to look out for too.
Minaya to me is like the Frankie Tinala of last year's class. I think that he's going to be highly sought after by the end of the process, but athletic, good frame, has some development to do, very raw right now. And he's a ways away from being able to play at Miami, but those guys tend to develop pretty quickly. Someone asking about Zion here. Mm-hmm. Sorry to cut you off, Brad, but we're on the O-line topic. Is he going to play week 1? Right now, I'm going to say no. It may not even be, he may be healthy, but I think that the O-line is kind of forming into what they're looking for it to be, at least that first 5, right? We didn't get to see it fully because of spring, the spring game, guys were hurt, so we didn't see the interior line fully there. But I think we got to see what happens with Zion. Obviously, his health has been a concern as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a position battle for him. He's going to have to come back and compete with Jalen Rivers, who we know is the ultimate toolbox of the offensive line. It seems like for this group, he's someone that could play guard, tackle, center at times if he needed to. So that's the benefit. We're not used to being in these situations. Usually there's only one offensive lineman coming into the season that we really are depending on, and the rest of the guys is like, oh, we don't know how they're going to perform, and it's always that one offensive lineman we're depending on that is never either there because of injury or just don't pan out well. And now you're in the complete opposite. It seems like most of your foundation on the offensive line are guys that are already proven from bigger programs like UCF and Alabama that you brought in from the transfer portal. You tie that in with some other guys like a Nez Cooper, like a Francis Mayagoa, that allows you to have good quality competition. And having that competition between Jalen Rivers, Zion Nelson, and then you look on the other side, Samson Okinola and Francis Maigoa. That's the competition you want to create on Green Tree in order to become successful again.
Yeah, because look, Jalen Rivers probably isn't a tackle at the next level. Um, might be our best option right now at left tackle. I know people are saying he didn't look great in the spring game, but at the offensive line position, there's so much to take into account, especially if you're trying to cover for the guy next to you and there was some deficiencies in the interior line, which that's a whole nother discussion because they're going to have to develop some depth on the inside. I think it's getting to where it needs to be at the tackle spot, especially if you already have these guys and you're recruiting a guy like a Brandon Baker. Imagine bringing him in, to this, kind of, you're stacking talent at that point at a premier position, but you need to get there on the interior as well.
Yeah, man. When you talk about stacking talent, it definitely helps when you're kind of stacking that talent before he even gets there, right? You look at the IMG kids and what Mario has been able to do for that high school just in the matter of time of a year and a half at Miami. He has been able to bring kids from all over the country to IMG and then, handpick a select few to be Miami Hurricanes. And when you look at the select few of IMG guys that we had before Mario Cristobal got here, right? Someone like Brian Hightower, Michael Redding, Tyree St. Louis, Scott Patchen, Ryan Fines. These guys did not pan out so well at Miami. And just in the last year and a half, I mean, you're talking about Francis Maigoa, Antonio Tripp, Riley Williams, Jaleel Skinner. And now when you look at this class that we're going after, you got a potential 8 guys on IMG that Miami is targeting. Even if you land 4 to 6 of those guys, you're talking, again, 2 years in a row back to back where you're landing the high quality, high profile guys from a big pipeline like IMG, who you're getting young men that are coming into the program that are already, in a sense, college ready because of the program that IMG is in particular.
So, got a question here from Old Kane. Brad, are we recruiting Central DT Nicholas?
I think we are trying to get on board with him. When I talked to Vincent Schaefer's and his dad, Vincent actually said he didn't even mention T.A. Cunningham when I asked guys that he was trying to recruit and get on board with Miami. But the guy that he
He probably
mentioned,
doesn't know him well enough just yet.
well, I asked him that too. He said he has kicked it with him a few times, and they hang out. But one of the guys he did say he was trying to get was the defensive lineman that he mentioned. But we'll see what happens. I know with Miami, they're going after a lot of kids at the defensive line position right now. And they could possibly be getting another defensive lineman committed in this class by Saturday, I would say. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. You may get another defensive lineman already in the class, which would bring your total to, I think, 8 or 9 commits. But I wouldn't be surprised if this commit list gets to close to 30 when it's all said and done.
Tejeda bomb right there. We got a Brad Tejeda bomb right there. So Saturday, man, let's be on the lookout by Saturday. We're not holding you to it, but should be interesting. Let's see. So we'll take a couple more questions here and wrap it up. Dylan Stewart will be all Kane. I don't see him getting past Jason Taylor. Let's see. It'll be interesting.
There's a few
Go
names.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say there's a few names on the defensive line that it could get real interesting. Dylan Stewart's one of them. Colin Simmons, Elijah Rushing, Kamarian Franklin, L.J. McCray. And then when you talk about the interior, you got Jericho Johnson, T.A. Cunningham, Jaden Jackson, David Stone. We're going after the big dogs, and it seems like we're either the top team or right up there. So it's going to be a fun June and July, Cane fans. I promise you that. And it's going to be real interesting to see what the rival fans of Florida and Florida State say when this recruiting class in Miami is all said and done. Because right now, they think Miami is not going to succeed. And as we know, if there's one thing Mario does with a football program, he succeeds at recruiting.
Guys, check out the podcast we posted yesterday. Keyshawn George, basketball podcast. Kid coming over playing professionally from France. But he's from Switzerland. Has been playing professionally in France. really big pickup for the Canes. It was a great conversation. Brad, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, and we got to do this more. It was a great conversation with the fans, and we've been over 100 for a good period of time here, so good numbers.
Hey, numbers is what we put up, man. Let's keep doing it, bro.
Yes, sir. All right, Brad. See you later, Canes fans. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week.
Yes, sir. Go Canes.